It was a weird night for Zach Eflin in a weird ballpark as the Orioles dropped the first of four in Tampa against the Rays. I'll recap it, plus talk about the Orioles' recent roster moves coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Tuesday, June 17th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap the Orioles' blowout loss against the Tampa Bay Rays on Monday night, talk about just the horrid outing from Zach Eflin and the O's getting boat raced in their first game in the minor league park this season. Then we will chat about the roster move, or the big one at least, that the Orioles made on Monday, placing Cade Povich on the injured list, what it means for the rotation and who will replace him. And then finally, the O's got another depth arm requiring right-hander Kyle Tyler, getting him off waivers from the Phillies. We'll talk about what he could bring to the Orioles later this year. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast. Before we get there, though, just did want to thank you for making Locked On Orioles your first podcast listen of the day. We're free and available on all podcast listening platforms, and whether you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere else, if you could subscribe or follow the show, leave a 5-star rating and a review, really helps out the pod. And then, of course, we are here on YouTube. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. And if you want to talk Orioles, have any baseball thoughts, want to ask some mailbag questions, you can always, really with anything, email me lockedonorioles@gmail.com. So let's start with an Orioles loss that, as of I'm beginning this recording, is not quite over yet, but it is 7-1 Rays right now with 2 outs in the bottom of the 8th inning as I've begun my recording. So I'm assuming the Orioles are not going to make a 6-run comeback in the top of the 9th, and it feels safe to assume that the O's will drop the opener of this 4-game series against the Rays in Tampa, ending their quick little 3-game winning streak. And so let's recap this game with what went right, what went wrong, and a shout out to a player in this one. So let's start with what went right for the Orioles on Monday night. And that was, well, their one and only run to this point with 3 outs to play with. That was Adley Rutschman hitting 1 out. A solo home run from the left side of the plate to lead off the 4th against Rays starter Ryan Pepiot made it a 3-1 game. 8th home run of the season for Rutschman, hit about 101 off the bat, traveled 357 feet at a 49-degree launch angle, just shot that ball straight up into the sky to hit it out. And Kevin Brown talked about it on the Masson broadcast after the hit, that he was like, I'd never seen a ball with that high of a launch angle be hit for a home run. And some of it is because of the Mickey Mouse ballpark that the Rays are playing in. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But also, yeah, it was a pretty high launch angle. 49 degrees on the launch angle, that's the angle that the ball comes off the bat, is the second highest launch angle for a home run since it's been tracked in the StatCast era. That's going back 10 years to 2015 when that tracking started. And you get 10 years of data, there's probably been some home runs with a higher launch angle in Major League history because there were some ballparks with even shorter fences. But in more modern history, when the fences are pushed back a little bit, you generally can't hit the ball that high and still get it to travel far enough to go over the wall. And some of this is because, again, in this Rays minor league ballpark they're playing, it is the shortest right field in all of Major League Baseball, and that is where Adley hit the ball. But it's also some because of his strength to be able to get the ball that high in the air and still hit it out. Now, 50-degree launch angle is the StatCast era record for a home run. It's been done 3 times. Lamont Wade did it last year in San Francisco, hitting one right down the corner. JD Martinez did it when he was with the Tigers in 2015 in St. Louis. And then Xander Bogaerts did it, hitting one just barely over the monster in Fenway in 2021. That was against the Orioles. He hit that home run off of our old friend Spencer Watkins. But the 49 degrees for Adley, again, was the second most ever highest launch angle on a home run in Orioles StatCast history. Again, that dates back to 2015. And again, like, this is kind of a Mickey Mouse home run in a Mickey Mouse ballpark that the Rays are playing in right now. But Adley deserves this. He deserves to get some good batted ball luck after the way his season has gone and all the bad luck that Adley has seen. He's having a great month of June. He's got an OPS over 1,000. He's hitting over 360 in June. He is heating all the way up as we're now a little over midway through this month. It has been awesome to see Adley kind of lead this Orioles offense as they are playing, even with the loss Monday, much better baseball here in the month of June, and just another good sign for Adley to see him hit the ball out. Now, what went wrong for the Orioles? A lot of things on the mound for Zach Eflin. Now, it was good to see the bullpen put up zeros. Gregory Soto, 1 scoreless inning. Colin Selby with 2 of them, but didn't really matter because Eflin was really, really bad for the second time this year. His final line in this one against his old team, 5 innings, 12 hits, 7 earned runs, 2 Ks, 2 walks, 2 homers on 76 pitches for the Oriole right-hander. And it's his second of 2 blow-up outings he's had this year. Remember, about a month ago, he gave up 8 earned runs in 5 innings against the Nationals. So this one, I guess, a little better because it was only 7 runs, but it was still pretty bad. Now, it didn't start off great. Josh Lowe hit a leadoff home run against Eflin in the bottom of the first to make it a 1-0 game. But I will say, even though Eflin gave up a single run in each of the first 3 innings, there was definitely some bad luck involved in all 3 of those runs. First of all, I talk about Adley hitting a Mickey Mouse home run. Lowe's leadoff homer was the truest of Mickey Mouse homers. This ball off the bat from Josh Lowe in the bottom of the first inning shows you how crazy it is that the Rays are playing in this stadium. He hit that ball only 98 miles per hour off the bat. It traveled just 334 feet and landed just beyond the first row in right field. According to StatCast, Steinbrenner Field, where the Rays are playing, is the only ballpark of the 30 in Major League Baseball where that batted ball would have ended up being a home run. Not even in Yankee Stadium with the short porch and right would that ball have gotten out. It had an expected batting average of 0.40, and instead it's a 1-0 lead, and Eflin ends up giving up just the 1 run, I should say, and getting out of the first inning. Then in the second, a bunt on a safety squeeze gets the run home. Then in the third, with a runner on third and 2 outs, an infield chopper slow hit single gets the 3rd run in. So Eflin certainly was not pitching his best through those first 3 innings, but it's a 3-0 game. O's get the Adley homer. It's a 3-1 game. And then he comes back out in the 4th, and you're like, all right, it's time for a shutdown inning. He retires the first 2 Rays hitters. He goes 1 and 2 on Josh Lowe. You're thinking, all right, Eflin's going to settle back in, get a 1-2-3 inning, and the Orioles are right back in the game. And instead, it just looked weird after that for Zach Eflin. At 1 and 2 on Josh Lowe after a couple of foul balls, he threw 3 consecutive balls to end up walking him with 2 outs. And those 3 pitches were nowhere even in the zip code of the strike zone. If you're watching here on the Locked On Orioles YouTube page, going to show the pitch chart from that AB with Eflin versus Lowe in the 4th inning. This is via Baseball Savant and StatCast, and you're going to see here pitches 6, 7, and 8 of the plate appearance. That was ball 2, 3, and 4 that led to the walk. Pitch 6 is a sweeper that's about, a foot and a half outside. Pitch 7 is a changeup that's above Lowe's head. And pitch 8, the 3-2 pitch, is a sweeper that completely slips out of his hand and ends up going to the backstop. Adley couldn't even catch it on a 3-2 sweeper from Zach Eflin, a guy who hates walking guys, and walked 2 in this game, which tied his season high. This guy's got one of the lowest walk rates in Major League Baseball, and that's how he's been for most of his career as a starter. And so to see him throw 3 pitches like that at 1 and 2, that may have been 3 of the pitches furthest away from the strike zone for Eflin all season, was really, really odd to watch. And then not just pitching coach Drew French, but also Tony Mansolino and the Orioles athletic trainer came out to check on Eflin after that last pitch to the walk. He was kind of confused why they came out. He said, no, I'm fine. They went back. They left him in the game. He immediately tries to pick off Lowe. The pickoff throw goes completely awry. Lowe goes to second, and then he throws the first pitch to Brandon Lau, who demolishes a 2-run homer to center to make it a 5-1 game. And although it was just the 4th, it felt like that kind of put the game away when Eflin felt like he should have been out of the 4th with a 1-2-3 shutdown inning and gotten the Orioles back to the plate in a 3-1 game. It was quite an odd sequence. I know. I'm recording here as the game is still going on, so we haven't, at this point, heard from Tony Mansolino after the game. So I hope all is good for Eflin. He did finish the 4th. He did come back out and pitch the 5th. The 5th didn't go well either. The Rays had hits on each of the first 3 pitches of the 5th inning, and all of a sudden it was a 7-1 game. Now, Eflin did lock in a bit and finish off the 5th to keep it 7-1, and that was the end of his night. But just not good stuff from Eflin. Again, it wasn't his worst start of the year, I guess, because he gave up 8 to the Nationals, but the 12 hits he allowed was a career high. Zach Eflin had never allowed 12 hits in a game, and he does it in 5 innings on Monday night. He had 2 previous starts where he allowed 11 hits. Each of them were with the Phillies. One was in 2017 and one in 2019. But man, oh man, like that was not good. And you got to think the conditions, the factors, the heat, the humidity at the ballpark had to play some sort of just role here. I mean, clearly he had a bad grip on the ball, 85 degrees, 70% humidity down in Tampa. And it's just a terrible situation, right? A hurricane blows off the roof of Tropicana Field this offseason. They can't find a new home. They can't replace the roof. So they got to play outside in Florida at the Yankees spring training / single A ballpark. But I mean, you got to give credit to the Rays, right? They are using the facilities in the ballpark to their advantage. They have a good contact-oriented lineup that's red hot right now. They're smacking the ball around the ballpark. They use those short porches for home runs to their advantages. And their pitchers, just from being more used to it, are going to be much more used to that weather and use it to their advantage as well. And it could be a rough 4-game series here for the Orioles. Like, these games are being played at 7:35 to try and stay out of the heat. The Rays have played mostly home games so far this year because they stacked their July and August schedule on the road so they could also stay out of the worst and hottest, most humid parts of the summer. But the O's don't have a lot of pitchers that miss bats. This Rays lineup is red hot, small ballpark. It could get ugly again like it did on Monday as it just went final, a 7-1 win for the Rays over the Orioles on Monday night. And the shout out for Monday, I mean, the shout out's got to go to Ryan Pepiot, right? I mean, he was unbelievable in this game. Some of it was the Orioles bats not producing, but some was Pepiot, which is one of the best starts of his career. 8 innings, 1 run, 4 hits, 11 Ks and 2 walks. The only run again was that Adley solo shot in the 4th inning. The Orioles had just 4 hard hit balls against Pepiot. And it's good, dominant stuff. It's a good velocity, mid to high 90s fastball with good ride, like really, really good ride. And then he's got that just filthy, disgusting changeup that he throws. He's got 8 whiffs on the fastball and 6 on the changeup against the Orioles. I mean, it's hard to call it a changeup. That pitch is basically a screwball, what Pepiot throws. And you watch that, and we know how good the Rays are at developing pitching, and they've done it again with Pepiot. And he was a guy who came over in the Tyler Glasnow trade. He pitched parts of 2 seasons in the big leagues for the Dodgers. He was a 3rd-round pick for them in 2019 before coming over to Tampa last year. And he had a pretty good season in the Tampa rotation last year, but he's kicked it up to a whole new level this year. And it just makes you think, like, the Orioles got to find a guy like Ryan Pepiot, 3rd round of the draft, develop him into this. You hope one of these guys, one of these pitching prospects who's doing really well in Double-A for the O's right now is going to develop in a year or two into a guy like Ryan Pepiot, because they're going to need to do some of that to turn this thing around. And it just shows you what other teams have been able to do and what the Orioles haven't quite yet been able to do. And man, he's been a breakout pitcher this year, and he certainly continued that with 8 strong innings on Monday night. He is filthy. He's now got a 3.11 ERA on the year, and the Rays have one of the best rotations in baseball as well, and they are lucky to have Ryan Pepiot as a part of it. But turning our attention to the Orioles rotation, obviously a bad night for Zach Eflin. The O's also have now a 5th starting pitcher on the injured list. We'll tell you who it is and how they replace him coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. And if you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for the extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's at supplyhouse.com. So the Orioles took a rough 7-1 loss on Monday night. Got not a good start from Zach Eflin, but luckily they do have Eflin off the injured list. He's been back for about a month and change. But on Monday, before the game, they did add another starting pitcher to the injured list, and that is Cade Povich, who has been in the Orioles rotation all year, but hits the 15-day IL on Monday with what the Orioles are calling left hip inflammation. Now, from what we know at this point, that's not the reason why he left Sunday's game. Remember, he came in as kind of the follower through 57 pitches, 3 2/3 scoreless in the Orioles win on Sunday over the Angels. Seemed to be more of a game situation thing with him being the follower, why he came out at that point with the bases loaded in the 7th inning. So it could be something that was kind of bothering him lately and got worse. Tony Mansolino said before Monday's game that Povich was kind of pitching through the hip issue for a bit, but they do consider it minor and aren't worried that it's going to be any kind of long injured list stint for Povich, but still something that maybe was getting a little bit worse. And you definitely aren't going to argue like, yeah, there's something going on with Povich's hip. Obviously, the Orioles were monitoring it and thought it got bad enough to put him on the IL, but the O's might also think, hey, he could benefit with a little time off. You know, it's been a very up and down season for Povich so far. 64 2/3 innings, got a 5.15 ERA, getting a little unlucky, right? He's got a 4.09 FIP, 24% K rate to an 8% walk rate, pretty solid numbers overall, but things just aren't clicking, right? He's let some big innings crush him. He's really struggled with 2 outs. He's really struggled with pitching with runners on base throughout this season. Stats have gotten much, much worse in those scenarios this year. And, you know, if the Orioles thought he just needed a rest, he does have minor league options. They could have just sent him down to AAA and made a change. There is clearly something going on with his hip. But if you do put him on the IL instead of just sending him to AAA, you can avoid burning an option year. Each guy, when they get to the big leagues, they have 3 years in which they can be freely optioned back and forth to AAA. And then those option years run out. We call it running out of options, where they then would have to be DFA'd. If you want to take them off the roster, they get put on waivers and someone else can claim them. So Povich entered this year with 2 option years remaining. His first one was used in 2024, so he had 2 left, the majority of his contract, which, you know, I think he wouldn't be a free agent until after the 2030 season. So you have Povich for a while, and he's been on the team all year so far, so they haven't burned an option year yet this year. You lose an option year if you get sent down to AAA at least once, and you spend at least 20 days of the season in AAA. And for the Orioles, if they were going to option him down, well, he has to spend at least 15 days down there before coming back. And there's a good chance he ends up spending 20. They don't want to have to use that option year if they don't want to. So again, it seems like the hip issue is a real thing for the O's, but theoretically for the Orioles, the 2026 and 2027 Orioles, you would think, as they learn from their mistakes this upcoming offseason, will have more veteran starting pitching depth in their rotation and maybe won't need Cade Povich in the rotation all year for the next 2 years, and would potentially need those option years for Povich to be able to freely send him to AAA Norfolk if he doesn't have a starting rotation spot. So again, I don't think they're manipulating the IL. I think it's definitely a hip thing that he has been dealing with, but that's also something the Orioles are clearly taking into their mind when they make these decisions. Now, Colin Selby was recalled, the right-handed reliever, to take Cade's roster spot. So for now, they will go with an extra guy in the pen, a 9-man bullpen. Selby coming in had made 3 appearances for the Orioles this year, 3 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 5 Ks, a walk, and a home run. Came over to the Orioles on waivers in the middle of last year, made a few appearances for the team, actually was on the postseason roster last year. But then he had kind of a weird spring training where he didn't really pitch. We weren't sure if it was an injury. He started the year in AAA, but then has gotten a couple of chances in the bigs, and he's been good in AAA, 16 2/3 innings, 3.24 ERA, 13 hits, 23 Ks, 9 walks, and 2 homers. The Orioles last had him up here about a month ago. They sent him back down to AAA on May 11th, and since he went back down, 9 1/3 innings, 1 run, 12 Ks, 6 walks, so he's been better. It's a solid mid-90s four-seam fastball and sinker with a really nasty slider and a really nasty curveball. I really like his stuff, and he had last pitched in AAA back on Wednesday, so he's very well rested, joining an Orioles bullpen that probably needed a fresh arm on Monday, as they're also right in the middle of a 16 games and 16-day stretch without an off day, so you certainly want to keep that bullpen fresh. And it was nice to have Selby on Monday night because Gregory Soto struck out the side in a scoreless 6th, replacing Eflin, and then Selby pitched the rest of the game. It was 2 scoreless innings. He did allow 2 hits, but 5 strikeouts to no walks in those 2 innings for Selby. He was filthy. That was the version of Colin Selby that has me really, really excited. How about this number? How about 9 whiffs on 14 swings against Rays hitters, including 5 whiffs on that just incredible curveball that he throws. 9 whiffs on 14 swings is insane in the 24 pitches Selby threw to get through 2 innings. He was dominant throwing that curveball. We saw more of the cutter than the old slider, but saw the sinker and the four-seamer. It was some serious big bend on that curveball he was throwing on Monday night. That was fun to watch. For Selby, unfortunately, he will probably have one more day on the roster, and he may not even pitch in that one. At the latest, he'll be optioned back to AAA on Wednesday because with Povich on the IL, the O's need a starting pitcher to replace him, right? They don't have any off days for a while, so they're going to need to have a five-man rotation. So what it looks like the Orioles are going to do is they're going to have Dean Kramer start here tonight on Tuesday. And then at the moment, and we'll see if Tony Mansolino has said anything after the game, but at the moment, the Orioles have TBA listed as the Wednesday starter, with then Charlie Morton scheduled to go on Thursday. And in the rotation right now, Kramer and Morton are back-to-back. So that means the Orioles are planning on calling someone up from AAA to start on Wednesday. And you would have to think it's going to be Trevor Rogers getting another chance here. I mean, all signs are pointing to Rogers, who, again, made his one big league start this year with the Orioles in Boston back in late May, 6 1/3 scoreless, 2 hits, 5 Ks, no walks, and a hit batter when he came up to pitch in that doubleheader and then was sent back down to AAA. The Orioles could have kept him in the rotation, but decided to keep Charlie Morton in there for a little bit longer. That's generally worked out because Morton's obviously been pitching much better over the past month or so. But now another chance for Rogers, who came over at the deadline last year, had 4 terrible starts, was kind of disappointing, began this year on the injured list. In AAA this year, it's a 5.51 ERA and about 33 innings, about an average K late, but it's a pretty low 6% walk rate. But in the 3 starts since being set back down after he made that start in Boston, he's been good. He's got a 3.13 ERA, 11 strikeouts to 2 walks in 16 1/3 innings. He last started Thursday for Norfolk, 4 innings of 2-run ball, 4 Ks and 2 walks. His fastball was sitting 91, but he was topping out at 95 with the heater, which is what you want to see from Rogers, which is where he was kind of sitting close to in that start in Boston. So all things lining up for Rogers to come up and start that Wednesday game. And you would think Rogers stays in the rotation at least for the duration of Cade Povich being on the injured list. It sounds like it'll be close to a minimum stay. Let's say it's a little more than 15 days. Let's say Povich is out for about 3 weeks. Let's say he comes back at some point in early July before the All-Star break. It's going to give Rogers at least 3 to 4 turns in the rotation with Povich out to really prove what he can do in more of than just the one start sample he got in Boston. And if Rogers is really pitching well and the other Orioles starters look fine and nobody else gets hurt, there's a chance that when Povich comes back, he could just be optioned down to AAA. And if Rogers gets more starts and he starts to look again like the pitcher he was last year, then he'll just go back to AAA when Povich returns, and Cade will get his rotation spot back. But it is, I think, more than it was, 3 weeks ago, a legitimate shot now for Trevor Rogers to get some runway here in the rotation, if indeed he is the one they do call up on Wednesday. And then hopefully for his sake, maybe hold that rotation spot, and hopefully the changes that he has made do work out for Trevor Rogers, and we can see it in what'll be facing a tough lineup and a tough ballpark to pitch in on what we think will be his start on Wednesday night. But as Rogers goes up to the big leagues, obviously the Orioles are going to need to backfill his rotation spot in AAA. Well, luckily they just got somebody off of waivers who they can do that with. I'll give you the scouting report on Kyle Tyler to finish off the show coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency, like a burst pipe. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait? No, you called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important, and that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. And the AI agent, they handle after hours calls. It's not like you got to sit there still 24/7. They answer common questions and captures leads so you never miss a customer again. And OpenPhone is offering Locked On Orioles listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonmlb. That's OpenPhone, OpenPhone.com/lockedonmlb. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. That's at OpenPhone. No missed calls, no missed customers. So we finish things off today with a waiver claim that the Orioles made on Sunday, bringing in 28-year-old, 6-foot-tall right-handed pitcher Kyle Tyler, claiming him off waivers from the Philadelphia Phillies. Tyler does have options, so the Orioles immediately optioned him to AAA Norfolk, and there was an open spot on the 40-man roster that he took, but now the Orioles 40-man roster is full at the moment. Now, who is Kyle Tyler? Right-handed pitcher who the Angels selected in the 20th round out of Oklahoma back in 2018 and debuted with the Angels in the big leagues in September of 2021. Came up as a reliever and pitched pretty well, 12 and a third innings of 2.92 ERA in 5 relief appearances. It wasn't the greatest of stuff, but he was getting outs. But then the roster carousel began for Kyle Tyler. That offseason after 2021, and then including the offseason after 2022, in that stretch, Kyle Tyler was DFA'd 6 different times. That's how much, and he was claimed by a new team every single time. That's how much he was bouncing around. In between, he pitched just 4 innings in the big leagues. That was in relief for the Padres in 2022. In 2023, he signed with the Mariners on a minor league deal, spent the whole year in Double-A as the Mariners kind of reconverted him to a starter, and he posted a 5.6 ERA in 135 innings. The Mariners didn't bring him back, so the Marlins brought him in on a minor league deal in 2024, and he pitched not great, but did get a chance at the big league level. The Marlins gave him 7 starts, 8 appearances at the big leagues last year. He threw 31 2/3 innings, a 5.40 ERA with an 18% walk rate. That's below average, and an 18% strikeout rate, 13% walk rate, which is well above league average. He also actually made 1 start against the Orioles last year, gave him 4 2/3 of 3-run ball. He throws 6 pitches, but it's mostly a cutter at 90 miles an hour and a curveball at 77. And that curveball was his whiff pitch. It had a pretty elite 43% swing and miss rate at the big league level in 2024. And then he also mixed in a 4-seam fastball, a slider, a changeup, and a sinker to go with it. He also threw 84 more innings at the AAA level with both the Marlins and the Phillies organizations last year and posted a 4.18 ERA in AAA. Then the Phillies brought him back in 2025, didn't make the roster, so he began the year in AAA again. And in 12 starts in AAA this year, Tyler has a 4.31 ERA in 62 2/3 innings, 16% K rate, but he has really slashed that walk rate down to 8%, which is nice to see. Now, he is coming off of back-to-back pretty rough starts that have kind of ballooned his ERA up to that 4.31. But if you take out those last 2 starts and you just look at the first 10 starts of Tyler's AAA season so far, it looks a little better, a 3.35 ERA in those first 10 starts. Now, in terms of what his stuff has been at AAA this year, so what is he really throwing right now? Again, if you're watching here on the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel, throwing up the pitch mix for Tyler in AAA this year. This is courtesy of Baseball Savant and StatCast. Mostly throwing the cutter almost half the time. Again, still that 90-mile-per-hour velocity. Throws it to righties and lefties. Throwing a lot more sliders, though, this year. About 25% slider usage on the season. Getting a lot more movement on that pitch. The curveball is still the whiff pitch. His number 3 offering, 37% swing and miss rate. Then we're seeing some 4-seam fastballs and then some more changeups than he threw last year. He's incorporating that a little bit more when he faces left-handed hitters. He's a guy who, you know, it's big pitch mix, right? He tries to throw the kitchen sink at you when he is out there. And I think the Orioles liked him because of deception. It is a very extreme, straight over the top arm angle that Kyle Tyler throws with. And there's actually not a lot of pitchers who can match his arm angle. It is a 61-degree arm angle that Tyler throws with, which is if he were in the big leagues this year, 4th highest arm angle among all right-handed pitchers in the big leagues. This is among pitchers who have thrown at least 100 pitches this year. So basically anybody who's been some sort of a pitching staff at any point this season. 100 pitches is not that many. That's sometimes 1 start for a guy. That's the 4th highest arm angle. The only pitchers who have, it's the 5th highest arm angle. The only 4 pitchers who have an arm angle at 61 degrees or above, so are at Tyler or higher, is Pete Fairbanks, dominant closer for the Rays, Ryan Helsley, a little shaky this year, but generally dominant closer for the Cardinals, Jeremiah Estrada, absolutely elite setup man for the Padres, and some guy named Felix Bautista. Those are the only 4 players, 4 right-handed pitchers in Major League Baseball that can match Kyle Tyler's arm angle. And the funny part is they're all dominant 1-inning guys. Kyle Tyler's a starter who goes 5-6 innings every time he goes out there. So it's a really interesting, deceptive kind of release. He gets a lead extension 7 feet down the mound, is like above the 90th percentile in baseball. So that adds to a lot of the deception. You're throwing from up here. It's being released closer to the hitter. I think that's what the Orioles like here, and they're intrigued by that deception. Now, how does he help the Orioles? Well, more starting pitching depth is never a bad thing to have, right? Povich just goes on the IL. You call Rogers up to the big league. So Kyle Tyler just kind of takes Trevor Rogers' spot in the Norfolk Tides rotation for now. That gives them Tyler, Chase McDermott, Cameron Weston, Thaddeus Ward. I keep calling him Thaddeus Ward. Whatever. It's Ward in there. Bronzy Contreras, either way, and Brandon Young just returned to AAA as well. With all the AA starters on the IL, Braxton Bragg, Trace Bright, Zach Fruit, Juan Nunez, Alex Pham, Edgar Portes, Patrick Riley, Levi Wells, all on the injured list in AA right now. You don't have to think about pulling from that group to get another AAA starter. You get Tyler in there as well. And again, if he's showing flashes with that big arm angle, with the deception down the mound, with all those pitches, maybe he pitches well enough down there that the O's need a spot start and they call him up. I mean, he does have 48 career big league innings, so wouldn't be completely flabbergasted by pitching in the big leagues. And it's just, again, it's nice to have a guy with options who gives you depth as a starter, as the Orioles have learned this year, because they have another 5 starting pitchers on the IL right now. You can never have enough starting pitching depth. And the name Kyle Tyler, it is not Tyler Kyle or Tyle Kyler or Kyler Tyle. It is Kyle Tyler, who they have added to their organization over the weekend. That'll do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Orioles back in action at the minor league ballpark on Tuesday night, 7:35 on Masson. I would think it's Dean Kramer going for the O's. He's trying to bounce back a little bit, had a bit of a rough year. And Zach Littell, another good righty with a good changeup for the Rays. 29-year-old has a 3.84 ERA in 14 starts this season. See if the O's can figure him out tonight. And then I'll be back tomorrow recapping Game 2 between the Orioles and the Rays. We'll talk about some unfortunate updates for Tyler O'Neill on the injury front, little positive updates for Tyler Wells on the injury front, and get my take on the wild Rafael Devers trade that happened over the weekend. That's coming up on tomorrow's episode. Until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.